is the Rangers Journal now. Hello everybody and welcome back to the series The Brown Brogues Who's Next, and we're here today to talk about Steve Cooper, and we're joined by Pete Selby from the For Fuck's Sake podcast. Pete, how you doing?
Yeah, well, I mean, for say I'm fine. Obviously, the football club down here are a complete disaster, but we'll talk about that more. But yeah, for me, it's fine. Being relegated is not necessarily a bad thing in football, especially when it's from the Premier League down to the Championship, because next season you can win some games of football. So, as Rangers know, you drop down the leagues and you can have a bit of fun in some lower leagues for a while, but you want to be back in the big time after a short while. But yeah, for me, I'm all good. Happy to be on the show.
Oh, good, thanks for coming on. So, I thought we'd speak a wee bit about Steve Cooper. Can you tell me a wee bit about his time at Leicester?
Well, it's a complete disaster. What it was, if you look at it from a whole, from afar, it was a complete disaster. But I think what's happened after he's left the club, almost it brings him back round to being employable again. Because if you leave a football club and the club then go down after you've been there, a matter of 4 or 5 months, it doesn't really reflect well on you as a football manager. But then if the club then sink to further depths after you've left, you kind of go, well, actually, it wasn't that bad, was it? But it was the wrong guy at the wrong time. First of all, I've seen Steve Cooper up close, obviously being in the Midlands for what he did at Nottingham Forest.
Yeah.
And then prior to that, with England, obviously being successful at youth level. But unfortunately for Steve and for the football club here at Leicester, it was just the wrong guy at the wrong time. Overall, I think he's a very, very good, honest manager. But it was just the wrong guy at the wrong time. He came into a club who had been promoted to the Premier League, playing a very, very strict and certain style of football under Enzo Maresca. Maresca then leaves, and the one thing that Steve Cooper did wrong was he tried to implement his style on the side straight away. Instead of looking at a side who's got over 100 points in the Championship and going, look, you guys know what you're doing. You're playing with experienced players who surrounded by some good youngsters. Let's just keep things how they are for a while and then slowly make changes. And unfortunately, I don't think it really worked from the get-go. But the one thing that Steve Cooper never had, and which is somewhat surprising with some of the people in the football club on the playing side and what you would expect from a club struggling, is he never really lost the respect of the players. And I don't think he lost respect of the fans as well. They're all quite taken with him because of his honesty and because the side played for him. They played to the final whistle and they got results late on in games, and we were outside of the relegation zone. But I think if he reflects on his time at Leicester, he will just look at things and go, first of all, we signed some poor players, but secondly, I just tried to do too much too soon at the club. He should have let things just naturally fall into place in the way that he would like, but let things just develop over time. Like Claudio, the one thing with the league winning season, I hate to turn it around to when we won the Premier League, but when we won the Premier League, the one thing that Claudio did, which a lot of people don't realise, is that he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything at the start of the season. It took him months to then make slow changes to the side. And I think that's how you got a lot of respect from the players and say, look, we did really well at the end of the season. Let's not change anything. Let's just move forward slowly, and you can make slight changes as you go through the season. But Steve, unfortunately, tried to make those changes really quickly, and it didn't work, and it didn't work spectacularly.
You mentioned his style there. What is his style of play?
I think he's quite a solid manager in terms of a regimented style. So he would like a very solid back four. Really, with the players that we had, we wanted to change to a three ideally, but it never really happened. He can be quite versatile. He likes to play what everyone likes to play nowadays: four at the back, and then you have two in midfield, three, and then a one. But that's what everyone kind of does. And he likes your team to press, to play expansive football, but without losing your shape. So there's nothing groundbreaking in there. From the sideline, I was quite critical with the way he was slow to make changes in a game.
Right.
And Leicester, more than likely found themselves behind. And especially during the midway point of the second half, when you would expect changes to be made, it seemed that we were being more reactive than proactive. But again, in the scenario of a side like Leicester in the Premier League compared to a Rangers in the Scottish Premiership, that would be completely different. You'd be on the other foot. But what you can expect is a side that's a side set up quite solidly, but also knowing that when the ball goes forward, he will get players to come forward. He will want the fullbacks to go forward and help out with the wingers, but he would want your midfielders to go box to box. He kind of there's nothing special there. There's nothing special. He wants people to work hard. And then the one thing with his side, and when it did work with Leicester on the odd occasion, and I've known a lot of Nottingham Forest supporters. The one thing that they noticed was if the side's playing well and there's one or two players who are not pulling their weights, it's quite easy to see them not pull their weight in their side because everyone is doing their job. Everyone is pressing. Everyone is sticking to their guns and sticking to their positional their positions when out of possession. And if someone isn't, it's quite noticeable. And I think that's quite a good thing. That's quite a good trait to have. But yeah, so it's when it comes to his playing style, there's nothing really to write home about. It is quite standard stuff. But then again, when you're looking from afar at say a Rangers, that's not necessarily, I would say, a bad thing. It's more about getting the team on side, and the one thing that Steve I think can do is gain the respect of the players quite quickly, which is ultimately a good thing.
Did he have a good rapport with the players at Leicester?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, very much so. Even though things were really poor, we've got players who have played here for a long time, mentioning Jamie Vardy for one of them, who was always on his side. There was rumours about maybe a little rift with one or two players. That wasn't the case. Ruud van Nistelrooy's had problems with a few players like Harry Winks and Yannick Vestergaard, but that wasn't necessarily the case with Steve Cooper. Again, looking back on his time, the one thing he tried to do was make slight changes to the side and the way that they played, but he did that really quickly. And also, rather than let the side develop to what the way he wants to play, and that includes players as well. So instead of playing the team that essentially got promoted and then making slight changes, all of a sudden you had one or two of the mainstays being on the bench straight away or not in the first team squad, and bringing in some of the signings in the summer straight away, which I felt was a bit of an error. So again, that means I think he wanted to stamp his authority on the side. Look, I've brought these players in. These are my signings, and they're playing straight away. When some of the older brigade who have been there and won the championship the year before with, again, over 100 points, maybe look around and go, well, hang on, I think I deserve my place in the team. But so I think he almost tried too hard that way. So that could be something to look to if he does to Ibrox. But he comes across as a decent chap. Now, that might sound a little bit wishy-washy, but from the sidelines, that means an awful lot at a kind of a working-class club like Leicester, where even though they've had an amazing amount of success in the last 10 years, the fans still want a player to work hard, and they will get applauded just for working hard, even if they are not very good. And they quite like, even though we've had the Ranieris in charge, we've had Claude Puel, we've had Brendan Rodgers of all people, who he's not quite a, and I know you will agree with this certainly, but he's not an easy guy to kind of like from the stands and go, yeah, well done, Brendan, you're one of us. It's not quite like that. He's a different kind of person. He's a very good football manager, let's get it right. But with Steve Cooper, there's a little bit of an element of he could be the guy sat next to me in the stand. He looks like one, let's get it right. He fell on every branch on the way down, didn't he? But so there's a little bit of relatability
Yeah.
to Cooper that I quite liked. He seems quite a humble bloke, and I think the players like that as well. But again, it just didn't work out at the club.
Was he backed in the transfer market in the summer after promotion? Did
Very
he have
much
the
so. I
quality
mean,
needed?
very much so. And at Leicester, we've had and this is the crux of things. You could be the richest football club in the world. You could be the richest football club in your division, and Rangers, you'd be right up there, of course, in the top two. But you guys know, if you don't sign the right players, season after season after season, you're going to go right down. Look where Manchester United are in the Premier League. They're right down towards relegation zone because they've signed absolute garbage over a long period of time.
Aye.
And it doesn't matter how rich you are, if you sign poor players, you're going to end up dropping down. Leicester, top 5, 2 seasons on the bounce, should have got in the Champions League, dropped down to 8th, won the FA Cup, played in Europe, fantastic. The glory years, we've seen it all. But We've had 4 seasons of 2 transfer windows, and there's only been one transfer window where we've actually signed a couple of decent players in 4 years, and I am not exaggerating. So in the summer, we signed Caleb McCauley, turns out to be a bit of a donkey at the back. We signed Skip in midfield for 25 million. He just hasn't played. I feel quite sorry for the guy. No idea why he's not played. We've signed around about 60 to 70 million pounds worth of players, and they have not worked out. He signed Ayew and he signed Decordova Reed, 2 30-year-old wingers or 30-year-old plus wingers, just completely against what we have done prior to the last 4 years, and that's sign younger players to develop them and then sell them for big money. And you can go through year after year. We've sold one player every single summer to balance the books. Maguire, Mahrez, Drinkwater, Chilwell, year after year after year for big money to balance the books. But we've changed. We changed for some reason our tactics this summer to try and bring in a bit of experience. We gave a new contract to Yannick Vestergaard. All these things have just not worked at all. We decided not to sign a centre forward. We had a 38-year-old Jamie Vardy up front with no help at all. It's ridiculous. So I don't know whether that's Steve Cooper or the football club with John Rudkin and Martin Glover, but Steve has to take a big chunk of responsibility there. Now, whether he came into the club going, look, this is a good side, but we need a bit of experience, it hasn't worked. It has not worked at all. Not one of the signings has been a success. It really hasn't. Bilal Alkan, who's a young lad who was signed for 20 million, who'll go for big money. He started to turn it on towards the end of the season, but you can't pin your hopes on a 20-year-old Moroccan. It's so overall, is it a tick or is it a cross next to his name? It's not even a cross. It's a big red cross. But with the caveat that the football club should have been set up better to sign better players. Steve should have come in and they should have gone, by the way, Steve, these are 6 players or 7 players which we feel will benefit from coming to Leicester and that we will benefit from having them. And if those players were the players that were signed, great, but I don't think it was. So, yeah, a little bit of a negative there on the signings. But yeah, he signed some good ones at Forest, but yeah, a bit of a thumbs down on that.
Yeah. It's interesting. He's got a fairly decent track record in terms of managing the Championship. He did an okay job before Forest, I would say. Obviously, they went from strength to strength when Nuno Espirito Santo. But what was his? I don't know if you'll have any insight to this, but in terms of training methods and his coaching staff, did they have like a set piece coach or anything like that?
No, the one thing with Steve, and this is the disappointing aspect of him at Leicester, we built a training ground about 2 years ago at Seagrave, down the road from here, not too far. Built it over a golf course, which was a shame, but never mind. And they built essentially the best training ground in Europe, £100 million training ground, amazing, absolutely amazing. And it moved Leicester away from being that underdog side to being a relatively big club with great facilities. And maybe that took the edge off the players and they became a little bit too comfortable in their surroundings and ended up getting relegated with a hell of a side. So Steve coming into the club, being a boots on the ground manager, he's not the manager who won't take training sessions, who will be away from the ground. I hate to go back to Celtic, but in a Martin O'Neill way, again, obviously ex-Leicester, he was a very much of a Brian Clough where you might not be at training for 3 or 4 days a week and then turn up late. Steve was boots on the ground, training with the players every single day. And I really liked that. When he signed, I was like, this is a guy who can get a hold of this squad and he's a very good coach on the training ground. That's what got him the job at England. That made him successful at England, and that's what built up this reputation. A bit like a Lee Carsley's got the same at the moment there. And I was excited by him using the facilities at Leicester to his advantage and having the best facilities in Europe to then use, but obviously he didn't have the time. He wasn't given the time for that. So, yeah, in terms of training, I would argue he would be one of the better managers to implement whatever style he wants on the side. But unfortunately, you're not given time nowadays, and he wasn't given time at Leicester. He had a number of young coaches with him. He wasn't afraid to bring some older players through to the ranks on an upward curve. He did that with Forest as well. So if there's any older players retiring who want to come to the club, or maybe bring an old head who used to be a bit of a Rangers legend into the setup. Rude did that at Leicester with Andy King. That could be the case. I don't think he'll be afraid of doing that. But when it comes to training, yeah, that I was surprised it didn't work out better than it did.
Yeah, yeah. I want to quickly ask you about Jamie Vardy, if that's all right. There's murmurings up here that it could potentially be coming up to Scotland. I think it's an obvious link, to be honest. Could he do a job for Rangers in the SPFL?
Well, I mean, I could talk here for the next 2 weeks about Jamie Vardy. Just to get, I mean, I, everyone knows his story and everyone knows what kind of player he is. So I'm not going to sit here and say he's a good centre forward. Um, he's the best player who's played for the club. He's the GOAT, as they say nowadays.
Right.
That's what the club say. That's what the local radio stations say. That's what I say. He's my niece's favourite player. He's my favourite player. He's my dad's, who's 76 and a season ticket holder for since year dot. He's his favourite player. He's everyone's favourite player. He's the best player that's ever played for the football club. He's sharp as a tack still at 38. He will play. I can see him playing for at least another 2 seasons with the way he is. Yeah, he will score goals. He will score goals in the Premier League. Look at his finish against Southampton at the weekend. A brilliant goal. So if he does join, you're getting a top-class centre-forward, very intelligent runs, not just his runs, the way he holds his runs and then goes again. Very intelligent off the ball, holds the ball up well. We know about him closing down defenders, finishing, brilliant, still very quick, maybe over a shorter distance than before. Very, very fit, looks after himself very well off the field. Again, you're using words that are bandied around, but I'm not going to use the L word. I'm not going to say legend, but an icon, really. As someone who, if he does join Rangers, it would be a great signing for on a rolling year contract. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
He would score a lot of goals for any club in Scotland, whether it's one of the big two or in the Premier League. He will still score plenty of goals. But what he will bring a wealth of experience, and he will be. I mean, Paul Gascoigne, when he joined Rangers, obviously came with a little bit of baggage, but also brought so much to the dressing room. He's not Paul Gascoigne. He's not that sort of player, but he is the cheeky guy on the training ground there'll be all sorts of videos go around. There'll be all of a sudden word will let slip about some pranks or just some jibes in the ground. But he will be a leader, like big time, and a big personality. He takes it all on his shoulders. And the best thing that Jamie Vardy does, he delivers, and he delivers a lot of goals. And if I was Rangers, he would be the first person I would sign. The first person, because you might get a year, you might get 2 years. But I tell you what now, he's nearly played all the games in the Premier League this season. He scored 20 goals in the Championship last season. And we're not going to get into debate about the quality of football in Scotland, but honestly, if he plays virtually a full season, you've got a 20-goal striker there on a one-year contract. Easy peasy. And just a hell of a footballer. But the one thing with him, just one more thing, as much as again, I could go on about his history at Leicester. If he signs for Rangers, within 45 minutes of him playing in their first game, most supporters will turn around to each other at half-time and go, do you know what? I didn't think he was actually this good. He surprised me of how good he is. Yes, he can finish, but I'm surprised of how good a footballer he is off the ball and then with his back to goal. He's brilliant. He's absolutely quality, and that's what people will be saying at halftime if you sign him. And I think every club in Scotland, in Saudi Arabia, in America, in the Premier League, if they need someone, they should be signing Jamie Vardy. It's a shame he's leaving Leicester. I think it's probably the right time overall, but he's quality. That's all he is.
Where can you maybe see him ending up?
Unfortunately for you guys, if I had number one club, it would be Celtic. Unfortunately, because of the links with Brendan, because of with Kasper Schmeichel, etc. And I think it's a very easy signing if they come knocking. With complete respect to Rangers, if they come knocking, that's a difficult club to turn down because of who's there, because of the manager and Kasper. But equally so, if Rangers come knocking, if you're Jamie Vardy right now, you've been there and done it. You've won 2 championships. You've won the Premier League. You've won the FA Cup. You've won a Golden Boot. You've won countless England caps and scored countless goals. You've scored goals in the Champions League, in the Europa League, Europa Conference League. You've done it all.
Yeah.
So what do you want? Now, if I was him at his age, you maybe got a year or two. If you want the money, Saudi or the USA, that's there. But I think Jamie Vardy wants to still play Premier League football. But I think he'll be looking at a club who are in Europe and saying, I could be on the bench for you, but I can come off the bench if you want. But if no one comes along, where do you go? You go to Rangers, you go to Celtic, you go to one of the big two in Scotland. And if you go to Celtic, with respect to what they've done recently, you've got a very good chance of winning things and you're playing with people you know. But if you go to Rangers, what you can be is you can be the one person to drag Rangers from where they are in the league right to the top and go, look, lads, I'm going to score you between 20 and 30 goals this season. You've just signed a 20 to 30 goal centre forward. Don't matter about the age. Don't worry about that. You've just signed a 20 to 30 goal centre forward. You sort out the rest of the side and we can win this championship. And guess what? If he wins that championship and if he sits there and goes, if I join Rangers and win the league in my first year, I am a hero. I am doing what Paul Gascoigne did. I am that person to come from south of the border and all of a sudden be completely loved, because that's what's going to happen. Like the fans, wherever he joins, they'll be ecstatic that he's joined and they will love him from the first goal he scores. But more than likely, Rangers fans, it won't be the first goal he scores. It'll be the first left back or right back he closes down, puts them in the stand and the ball. That's when you'll love him and you'll think, hang on, we've signed a real player here. And yeah, so I can see him having a bit of a challenge, and I can see him looking at Rangers and going, do you know what? That's a very big club to join. Great career move at his age, but also the chance to become even a bigger icon above the border. Because if he does win the league with Rangers, my word, what a story, what a chapter to finish off that part of the career. Because I don't think it will be over. I still think there's many years left in Jamie Vardy.
It would be interesting. Steven Gerrard's odds-on favourite for a job to come back up to Ibrox. A very strong favourite for it. Done a kind of similar thing with Jermaine Defoe, bringing him in. The kind of older head Jermaine Defoe he was so loved up here. It was unbelievable for his leadership, just for being him. The goals he scored. So I think if the Gerrard move happens, then it's getting more of a chance of the question being asked, if that makes any sense. But wouldn't surprise me seeing him go to Celtic either with Brendan Rodgers. And
for me, it's the favourite option, because again, you're going to be challenging for a league, and he won't take an easy option. And I would put a move north of the border easily alongside a move to America. Saudi would be a slightly different option unless they want the money. I mean, depends how much his wife's got to pay out. Let's get it right. The obvious thing would be if a club in Europe in the Premier League who are qualified for Europe come in, and it's a club that he's got a good relationship with. Is he going to join? Someone mentioned about, and every club's been mentioned, but I was talking to a supporters group with Leeds United, and they were heavily linked with him. And I turned around and said, no chance. He's never joining Leeds. And they said, well, there's been a bit of bother over the years with him. I said, no, he's a Sheffield Wednesday fan. There's no way he's joining Leeds at this time. That's just not going to happen. So there are clubs you can put a line through. But I look at the top two in Scotland and go, that just makes a lot of sense. And again, and I know I'm coming from not a biased position, because he's no longer, he won't be a Leicester player. But I'm coming from a position who's seen virtually every single game he's ever played for the Foxes. And that's a lot. He's one goal off scoring 200 goals.
Yeah.
And I look at it and go, that looks like a very easy move for him and a very likable move. So, yeah. And that says it all. You've got a guy who's played 500 games and he scored 200 goals. How about that for a record? For a guy who's played at a club the size of Leicester for the majority of his football in the Premier League, to have that record just speaks for itself. But there's a hell of a lot more to Jamie Vardy than just his goals, even though his goals are plentiful. It's everything else he brings. And the one thing I think people look at who maybe haven't seen him, it's the level of professionalism. It's unbelievable. It's right up there, because you can't keep yourself that fit without be looking after yourself. We all know about the cracking a Red Bull on the side at Arsenal. In I don't know whether you saw the game in COVID times where he cracked a can of Red Bull, necked it, walked down the stand, ran onto the pitch, scored 5 minutes later. And that's Jamie Vardy. But hey, if it works, it works.
That's it. That's it. Well, thank you for coming on. It was an interesting chat, Pete. Do you want to tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find us at FFS Pod on Twitter. I'm not calling it its new name for Fox 8 Podcast. Yeah, we do it once a week, every fortnight. We've been doing it for 13 years. I'm a commentator down at the football club, but have been for an awful long time, and a sports commentator in my own right away from football as well. So, yeah, you can find us on there, and yeah, hopefully we steamroll the championship again next season. But hey, we'll see. It's football. It's a big circle. Sometimes you're going down on the way up, and then all of a sudden you're at the top. We've been at the top for so long. We've had a brilliant time over the last 10, 15 years. It's been absolutely amazing. But we're just on a bit of a way down at the moment. But once we get a new manager in and a new team next year, I think we'll be okay. But hey, we're away. I was in Rome 3 years ago, watching Leicester in the semi-finals of Europe. And in 3 years later, we're going to the racecourse ground at Wrexham. From Rome to Wrexham. Dear me.
Right, well, thanks for coming on, Pete. That was a good interview. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.